Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. You know, we always like to bring you the coolest new research, and today we're tackling a topic that's just massive in AI right now.
Definitely huge, and I'm happy to dive in with you.
Making AI learn better and learn faster, but it's not just about speed, right? It's got to be from the right data.
That's exactly it. I mean, think of it like a recipe.
Oh, here we go.
If your recipe is like half on a napkin and stained and missing some ingredients, you might get something, but
It's not going to be pretty.
not at all. That's kind of what we're dealing with in AI.
Okay, I'm hooked already. So we're looking at this new research just came out yesterday, January 14th, 2025.
Hot off the presses.
Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and get this, Apple's involved too.
Yep, they're in the AI game now, for sure.
They're calling this new technique mimic score. Sounds like a video game, but it's all about picking the good data from the junk so AI can learn better and more efficiently.
It's a really cool approach, too. Instead of humans saying what's good data, they actually use an already trained AI to be the judge.
Wait, so AI training AI, isn't that a little, I don't know, meta?
It is, but it's also kind of brilliant. Think of it like you've got this star student who aced the class, so you have them tutor the other students.
Right, so they already know the material inside and out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Mimic Score is doing. You have this super smart AI model acting as a mentor to a new AI that's still learning.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture, but before we dive into all the how it works stuff, I think we should take a step back for a sec.
Sure.
Why is this whole data junk problem such a big deal for AI right now?
Well, AI models, especially the newer ones, need a ton of data to learn.
And where do we get all that data?
You got it, the internet.
Right, which is, well, let's just say it's not always the most reliable source of information.
Exactly. It's a fire hose of information, but it's full of noise, fake news, you name it.
Yeah.
It's like trying to teach someone to speak French using YouTube comments.
Okay, yeah, that's not a good idea.
Definitely not. This dirty data can seriously slow down AI training and make it expensive. And even worse, it can make the AI learn the wrong things, be biased, or just not work right.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making sure it's learning the right stuff from the right stuff.
Absolutely. And that's precisely where Mimic Score comes in.
Okay, I'm sold on the problem. Now, break it down for me. How does this mimic score thing actually work? Is it some crazy complex algorithm that looks at every single piece of data?
It is pretty complex under the hood, but the main idea, it's surprisingly intuitive. So every time you train an AI, you're basically tweaking a ton of internal parameters.
Like knobs and dials.
Exactly, like a giant control panel with a million tiny settings.
Okay, I can picture that. Keep going.
So what Mimic Score does is it compares how those knobs and dials are being adjusted during training to the ideal settings from the reference model.
Ah, that star student AI we talked about.
Exactly. It's like checking the student's work against the answer key to see if they're on the right track.
Ah, so if the new AI is adjusting its settings in a way that matches the star student, it gets a high mimic score, meaning it's probably learning from good data.
You got it. But if it starts to veer off in a totally different direction, its Mimic Score drops.
And that tells you that that data is probably junk, the stuff leading the new AI astray.
Exactly. And the researchers didn't just stop at the score. They built this whole framework around it called Grad Mimic to put those scores into action.
All right, let's hear it. What does this grad mimic do with the scores?
It's actually a two-step process. First, during training, Grad Mimic prioritizes the data with high Mimic scores. So the new AI is basically getting the best tutoring from the best examples.
So it's like a teacher saying, pay close attention to this part, it's really important.
Yep. And then, after the training is done, Grad Mimic uses all those Mimic scores to automatically create a filter.
Ah, so it can just filter out the bad data later.
Right. You end up with this clean, streamlined data set that's ready for future training. No more need for manual filtering or writing complex rules. Grad Mimic takes care of it all.
That sounds pretty awesome.
It is.
Okay, I'm with you. So far, this grad mimic thing sounds really cool. But did it actually work? Like, did they prove that this whole mimic score thing actually makes a difference?
Oh, yeah. They definitely put it through its paces. First, they took these image data sets, pictures and stuff, and they intentionally messed them up. Added errors and noise to simulate real-world, messy data.
So they were basically trying to trick the AI.
Exactly. See if Mimic Score could catch the fakes and the junk. And you know what? It worked. Grad Mimic could spot the bad data points. Like it had a built-in BS detector.
Nice. So did using grad mimic actually make the AI better?
Oh yeah, big time. The AI models trained with Grad Mimic are way more accurate. like on average a 10% boost in accuracy.
Wow, 10%, that's not just a little improvement, that's a huge leap.
Right. And they didn't stop there. They wanted to try it out on a real-world problem, so they used it to train AI models for image captioning.
Oh, you mean like those descriptions you see on pictures online that help people who can't see the image understand what's going on?
Exactly. Makes the internet more accessible. They use this huge data set called DataComp, which has millions of images and captions scraped from all over the web.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster. So much potential junk data in there.
Right. A perfect testing ground for Grad Mimic. And guess what? It totally crushed the other methods.
So Grad Mimic helped create better image captions.
Not only that, but it also did something really fascinating. Remember how we were talking about those knobs and dials that get tweaked during AI training?
Yeah, the internal parameters, right.
Right. Well, they found that the mimic scores actually told them something about the data itself.
Mhm.
The scores were like a measure of how much noise was in the data set.
Hold on, so it's not just cleaning up the data, it's also telling you how messy the data was in the first place.
Exactly. It's like having a meter that tells you how much junk is in your data before you even start training.
That's amazing. It's like a quality control check for data.
Right. Saves a ton of time and resources. Now, are you ready for the really mind-blowing part?
Hit me with it.
Remember how Mimic Score uses an already trained AI as guide? Well, they thought, what if we could use it to figure out what data a pre-existing AI was trained on, even if we don't have that original data?
Whoa, so they're trying to like reverse engineer the AI's education.
Yeah, basically. And get this, it worked. They could look at the knobs and dials of a trained AI and make really good guesses about what kind of data it was fed.
That's crazy. It's like you see a finished painting and you can tell what colors the artist used, even though you never saw them mix the paints.
Exactly. And think about what that means. Imagine you've got an AI that's making some weird decisions, maybe showing some bias. With this technique, you could potentially analyze its training history and see if it was exposed to data that might explain why it's acting that way.
So you could see if the AI was taught the wrong stuff, basically.
Yep. Or imagine being able to take an AI that's really good at one thing, and by understanding its training data, adapt it to do something totally different without starting from scratch.
Okay, now that's some serious AI power. But with great power comes great responsibility, right? Are there any downsides to this whole thing?
Of course, it's not a perfect solution. You still need a good reference model to start with, and that can be tough to find, especially in really specialized fields.
Right, not every field has a star student AI just waiting around.
And even with a good reference model, there's no guarantee that Grad Mimic will catch every single piece of bad data or perfectly reveal the AI's entire training history. It's a tool, and like any tool, it needs to be used carefully and with an understanding of its limitations.
So it's not a silver bullet, it's more like a powerful new lens to help us understand and improve AI.
Exactly. It helps us see AI learning in a whole new way and opens up some really exciting possibilities for the future. It's definitely a game changer.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface here. What else could Mimic Score and Grad Mimic do?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're just at the beginning. This research is like, we found this amazing new tool, and we're still figuring out all the things it can do.
My brain's already going into overdrive thinking about all the possibilities. What about using this in healthcare to train AI that can diagnose diseases, but like way earlier and more accurately than we do now?
Right. Or in finance. Think about all the fraud and financial crime that could be stopped.
Oh, and what about personalized education? Imagine AI tutors that are like custom fit for each student's learning style.
The possibilities are endless. And it's not just about making what we have better. We could create totally new stuff we haven't even thought of yet.
Right. We've kind of given AI this superpower to learn better, so who knows what it'll come up with now that it has this new tool.
It's definitely exciting, but yeah, a little bit scary too, right? I mean, this really shows us why it's so important to develop AI responsibly.
That's a really good point. It's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making sure it's ethical and aligned with, well, with being good, basically.
We need AI that's not just smart, but also compassionate and fair.
Well said. So if there's one thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole Mimic Score deep dive, what would it be?
That's a good question. I guess the biggest takeaway is that data really, really matters. The quality of the data we use to train AI has a huge impact on how well it works, how it behaves, and tools like Mimic Score and Grad Mimic, they give us a way to make sure we're training AI with the best possible data.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality.
Exactly. And I think this also shows us that we're still in the early days of AI.
Mm.
There's so much we still don't know, so much left to discover. And that's what makes this field so incredibly exciting.
I totally agree. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of mimic score, and a huge shout out to the researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Apple for their incredible work.
Absolutely. It was great to be here. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring. AI is full of possibilities.
And remember, the best way to stay ahead of the curve is to keep asking questions, keep learning. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the latest research. Until then, stay curious.